What's up everyone and welcome to another Warframe video. The focus of today's video is going to be a brand new augment to a frame that honestly I haven't played in a very long time, maybe even since it came out, much to Kenjineer's dismay, and that is the Valance formation augment for Lavos. The augment itself is actually pretty simple to understand, but requires just a small explanation of Lavos' passive. You can hold an ability key to imbue his next ability with a certain element, so you get Toxin from 1, Cold from the 2, Electric from the 3 and Heat from the 4. You can even combine these by holding one ability then the other, or both simultaneously, to make a combination elemental, like doing 1 and 2, which will form Viral. Then your next ability cast will be imbued with that element. Well, the augment adds some further functionality to the passive, where that element will be added as 200% elemental damage to your weapon for 20 seconds. It's important to know though that you can only have one combo active at any time, so you can't just give yourself every elemental and just go absolutely ham with it. It's a lot of explanation for what is simply adds elemental to your weapon based on your imbued elemental from your abilities. The mod though isn't really affected by much in the way of modding. The 200% is actually unmoddable, you can't increase that with power strength. That does make sense, it would honestly be pretty busted if it was. However, the duration can be improved using duration mods, which can make this a lot comfier to use. With this in mind, how are we going to build him to take advantage of the augment? Well, we're essentially going to turn him into Sarin Mark II, or Hydroid Mark II, and turn him into what is essentially a high damage weapons platform. Fair bit of strength, we've got multi-augmented Blind Rage, Unbelievable Intensify, which is going to boost our Helmet ability, which in this case is going to be the recently nerfed Eclipse. I will talk a little bit more about Helmet later because there's a couple of configurations to this build you can do. Triple Umbral for survivability and is going to also boost the Intensify. We've also got Karna's Carapace and Adaptation for a lot more survivability. We're also throwing Arcane Blessing in here to take advantage of all the dropped health orbs from Synth Deconstruct on our Sentinel. Prime Continuity to boost the duration of both Eclipse and the damage buff from the final mod, which is going to be Valance Formation, the new augment. Archon Shards will be 2 green shells to boost the max stacks of Corrosive, allow us to strip almost anything in the game of armor, and then I went with 3 red shells for a bunch of extra ability duration. I'll just quickly address the elephant in the room real quick, the empty mod slot. Normally I wouldn't leave an empty mod slot, I would have slapped an Umbral Former on to fit another mod and max the adaptation. However, the Prime isn't overly far away and Umbral Former are few and far between, so I don't want to use one on something that's not the Prime, especially when it's so close. I would recommend waiting for the Prime, doing this build but sticking on an Umbral Former and then formering in the Power Drift for a bit more of power strength. Now the alternatives to this build I spoke earlier does depend on a couple of things. If you like a more caster style playstyle and okay with using the third ability to reduce your ability cooldowns, you can slap Raw on the 4 and take advantage of any double dipping weapons you might be bringing, like if you bring a Pennant or something with Slash and you want to double dip using Raw on something like Acolytes, then that would be the way to go. Or there is another alternative, keep the 4, remove the 3 for Eclipse and switch a Duration Shard out for a Topaz Archon Shard that gives you 50% additional crit chance on your secondary weapon on fire kills. Grab the fire elemental from holding the 4, get enough kills to max stack that because it will remain that way the entire mission, and then just go back to doing things normally. But what is normal when it comes to the gameplay loop of this build? Well, you really need a weapon with corrosive and high status. In my case, I'm using the Okicore because this thing is, well, it's just nuts right now. Then use the elements from the first and second ability to give you Viral. Then make sure you have the damage buff up from Eclipse at all times, or Raw if you're using that, and then just absolutely go to town, mowing everything down. If you're running the Raw instead of the Eclipse, make sure to throw in some well-placed transmutation probes, i.e. the 3, into groups of enemies to reduce the cooldown on Raw, and make sure you can instantly cast it every single time. So what do I think of this build? Well, honestly, it's pretty damn effective, and that's coming from someone that doesn't honestly play Lavos, well, at all. The damage he puts out with honestly just about any weapon combined with this augment is actually pretty ridiculous, and if you're good with Lavos then I think this augment is going to slide right into your daily driver build absolutely fine. This build is probably only slightly weaker than the Sarin buff build I showed not too long ago. It doesn't scale quite as well when you start going into much higher levels though. However, this does require a bit more of an active playing style than Sarin, but the power absolutely is there. The enemies in the footage are steel path, and honestly, this is kind of worst case scenario for this build, and it still doesn't really struggle. I had a blast with this build. I could have gone a lot further with it than I ended up doing in the footage, but honestly, I think it is a fantastic build. I think you'll have a lot of fun with it. But for now, I hope you all had a fantastic day, and I shall catch you in the next video.